Hey, how you doing, Grace Church? Welcome to the weekly. This is the week of October 24th, and today we're going to be talking about what it looks like to fight fear. So this last week, we talked about what it looks like to fight fear, and we looked at a very famous story in Scripture of Jesus calming the storm. There's going to be three passages that pop up on the screen right about now. We'll go ahead and take just a moment to read through those three passages. The main passage that we're going to be looking at today is Mark chapter 4, verses 34 through 41. We looked at this story this past Sunday, and it's a very famous story of Jesus calming the storm. The disciples are in a boat. A storm arises, Jesus is asleep, and Jesus calms the storm. And we see these disciples, when fear rises up in their heart, we see that they panic. We see that they start thinking irrationally, and we see that they start putting their faith in the storm. They're putting their faith in the wrong place, and they're forgetting in that moment about God's faithfulness and about His Word. You see, God knew that they were going to have to go through this storm, and some scholars would even say that God caused this storm to take place. And the same is true for us in our own lives. When we walk through an issue, a storm, a challenge, when fear arises in our lives, God knows that those things are going to happen, and He's there right with us. And so I've got a couple of questions that I want us to kind of to look at, and I want us to answer, whether you're doing this with your spouse, your roommate, your connect group, whatever the case may be. I want you to dig deep, and I want you to answer these questions. The first question is this: when fear arises in your life, what do you do? How do you respond in the unhealthy ways? What are the unhealthy ways that you're responding to fear? Are you disconnecting from family and friends? Are you overeating or stress drinking or shopping too much? What is it that you do that is an unhealthy habit when fear arises? The second question that I want us to answer is this: how can we be putting more of our faith in God when circumstances arise that cause fear in our lives? What can we be doing more of, right? How can we lean into those healthy habits and healthy rhythms more? The third thing that I want you to do in your group or with your roommate or spouse or whatever is I want you to discuss some of the ways that God has been faithful in your life. And if you can't think of the ways that God has been faithful in your life, just go ahead and look around you for a second, because some of the blessings that you have, some of the realities that you're currently living in, those are things that you once prayed for. And so go ahead and discuss some of those ways that God has been faithful in your life. And the very last thing that I want to do, I want to challenge you today to memorize a verse. And we're going to throw up just a few options for you right here. And you can pick one of these verses to try and memorize this next week. But if it's not one of these verses, I want you to pick one verse, any verse that has really spoken to you in a time of fear. And I want you to memorize that verse so that you can pull that verse out and repeat it to yourself when fear arises in your life. I've given you a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. I want to thank you so very much for joining me today on the weekly, and we'll see you soon.